Welcome to Decentralized News. If you're interested in Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, DeFi, and the macro news that affects it, welcome in. We post to YouTube first, so please subscribe if you'd like to catch the videos as soon as they drop. If there are any questions for our team or topics you would like to see covered in 2023, please comment on our videos. The goal is to be open and available to our listeners while providing unfiltered content that can help create genuine conversations to help the entire space grow. Your input is always appreciated, and thank you very much for listening. All right. As always, we have a lot of ground to cover, so let's give a brief disclaimer before we get going. This is not financial advice, and we are not your financial advisors. This is for educational and entertainment purposes only. A broad range of topics and opinions will be given freely today, so please do your own research. I'm joined today by my co-host, Ozzy. How are you, sir?
Doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. It's a beautiful Saturday morning, and I'm looking forward to getting into all the news.
Now, we've also got our friend Kurt here joining us for the show. Kurt's been a longtime friend of ours in DeFi, and he did in a few of our shows when we were just on Discord. So, welcome, Kurt.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be back. Always love being on here.
It's great having you. Um, Kurt is a member of the Obsidian Council, and he's also a core team member at Cardinal House. So, it's always great to get his opinions coming from DeFi. So, let's hop into it. Coin broke 21K last night. That was absolutely madness.
The
Just been
year has been, the whole year. I think has it been green candles every day,
I don't know if it's every day, but it's been pretty green.
and,
It's pretty
and they
nuts.
just got bigger in the last few days. The candles, if that's the case. They always say that after periods of low volatility is a big move, whether down or up.
Yeah, which makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
To celebrate, let's kick this off. Let's get into it. Alejandra Guajardo, El Salvador's representative at Miss Universe, wore a Bitcoin-themed outfit to the pageant's national costume show on Wednesday night. It was to show like their history with money. I think it wasn't only Bitcoin, but Bitcoin really stands out. Did you
Um,
see that?
yeah, I saw that, and El Salvador's really embracing Bitcoin. I'd love to see Bitcoin just getting out there and people seeing it. Adoption's still really low. It's big. Just something on an international stage like that. Just a fun story.
Yeah, it's lighthearted, fun. She had, what was it, a staff that she had out with the Bitcoin logo on it? Something pretty unique, but they have made strides. They're the first country to officially recognize the Bitcoin as a legal tender, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's such a fun, cool story. I love that one. But to go right into it, and a more serious note, Volcano Bond, the story about Volcano Bond. The Legislative Assembly of El Salvador approved on Wednesday a law for the issuance of digital assets other than Bitcoin. Included in the legislation was a legal framework for the issuance of Bitcoin-backed bonds, also known as volcano bonds. Did you see this one?
Yeah, I saw this one. I think Bitcoin bonds is something that people have been looking forward to as a big sign of adoption. And I think that is a huge bonus, to be honest. It's good to see it starting to come to fruition. Imagine if you were sitting on 40,000 or 60,000 or $80,000 worth of Bitcoin and you could take a mortgage. Like instead of having to put down your down payment, you could back your mortgage with your Bitcoin. Wouldn't that be something? And then this is like a step towards that. What do you think about that, Kurt?
I think it's interesting. I'm more intrigued to see how they've set the bond up to work. Because normally it's, hey, you get a bond, you put money towards it, and you're guaranteed X amount of dollars or X amount of percent over time. And it's like if you're doing Bitcoin backed bonds, in my mind, it's like, why wouldn't you more so just buy Bitcoin and hold it? Because depending on, once again, how the percentages and all that stuff are laid out, it's probably better for the individual to just buy and hold Bitcoin over time, unless there's like a barrier to entry where with crypto and how to get Bitcoin for some of these people. But I feel like nowadays it's not like it was when Bitcoin launched and you had to go through 3 different websites and it was sketchy. It's like now you can jump on Coinbase or any other centralized exchange and just swap out your currency for Bitcoin. I'm intrigued to see how they're planning on laying out all of that for their citizens.
Yeah, I think part of it is that it's 50% backed by Bitcoin, so it's not fully Bitcoin. So the net income in El Salvador is pretty slow, so they probably they're able to like maybe buy one Bitcoin as a country, and that's divided between 1,000 or 10,000 people in one bond, because people don't necessarily have enough to buy really a substantial enough amount of Bitcoin to make it worth it.
Yeah. No, and that makes sense. But it's not like you have to buy one Bitcoin yourself. You can fractionalize. I have 1.3 Bitcoin. It's not like you have to buy. It's not like you're holding a penny, or it's not like it has to be a full coin, which is a lot of conception for some people. But yeah, I don't know. I want to see the percentages and how they're planning on doing these bonds. I know the bond market has been hot, even like in the US. I'm not sure how it is where you're at, but I don't know. It seems like an interesting way to go about it. I want to see if it bleeds into other countries, if this is successful.
Yeah, we talked about potentially like being able to secure your mortgage with coin or ETH. So rather than having to maybe put down that sell all of your Bitcoin, your 1.3 Bitcoin, so that you have a 25,000 or whatever for a mortgage down payment, you could just back your mortgage with your Bitcoin. That'd be interesting.
That'd be really cool. I think you have to find a bank that would be okay with that, or like a money lender that would be interested like that. Because imagine if you had, because we had in the US, we have, I think it's New Mexico, if I'm not mistaken, has Bitcoin as legal tender as well. Like you're able to use it. It's not legally required by stores there, but it is possible to do it for government reasons. But there's a house that sold for, oh, what was it? It was like 4.2 Bitcoin is what they sold their house for. And that was at like the height of the bear market. So like I think they got it too. I think that's like what they officially sold for. But imagine having that, keeping it in Bitcoin, and then watching it plummet to what it is now.
Yeah.
That's where you run into issues, and you're gonna have these financial people that aren't okay with having that volatility in an asset.
Yeah, maybe it would have to be like, let's say we know Bitcoin can draw up to 80%. So maybe you've got to back your down payment by 2 or 3 times what its actual value is in Bitcoin if you're going to use Bitcoin or something like that. So you're securing it with a higher amount just because it is more volatile. I don't know. Could be an interesting thing that could evolve from these Bitcoin bonds.
Yeah. Just a step towards the bond market, which is a huge, huge market. So it is pretty exciting. One of the interesting things about it is they were going to use the bonds to fund Bitcoin City. And there was also some talk about the bonds being the reason called the volcano bonds. They're going to use renewable energy from the volcano. There's just a lot of exciting news in there. And there was also some talk of a volcano token.
Interesting.
Next stated that it will be an infrastructure provider for what it says should really be termed the volcano token, digital token, which will help El Salvador. So yeah, all kinds of action.
So El Salvador is becoming a DeFi project? Is that what I'm hearing?
There's certainly a petri dish, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'm glad to see this kind of adoption news coming out, and I'm glad to see that El Salvador is really embracing Bitcoin. And as long as it keeps working for them, I'm really happy and eager to see. Um,
Yeah, I
eager to
wonder
see
what
it
the
at work.
first country to try to follow their path, like the next country,
We
the
talked
domino
about
kind of start to
Fiji.
click. Yes, I feel like once the next country domino falls, it might start picking up some momentum.
Yeah, you need a few kind of like first movers, and then can really snowball from there. Um, Potentially, maybe country in Africa. We'll see.
Yeah. We can shift into kind of some macro news with the US leading into the Fed on the early February 1st. There's two upcoming tech earnings reports, Apple on February 2nd and Meta or Facebook on February 1st. Is that something you keep an eye on, earnings reports?
Keep a an eye on them in terms of how they do compared to expectations. I don't specifically follow each one, but depending on how they do from expectations, they do have an impact on the market. It's one of those things that I am worried could slow Bitcoin's growth.
And negative tech. This is like big tech. I guess it's earnings season is what they're calling it, but these are some of the big names in tech and a little more closely associated with cryptocurrency markets.
Exactly. So anytime it's tech earnings season, it tends to have a decline on Bitcoin because the market, if things are less than expectations, they take a little bit of hit, and it's not super good because they're also lining up with the Fed meeting. Meta's is on February 1st and Apple's is on February 2nd. So you're having multiple factors all lining up on the same couple days. So
Yeah, a lot of it around like the general economy too. Just these earnings reports are signs of what's going on. Are we in a recession? How are these interest rates affecting the markets?
exactly. And if we look at the calendar for next week, there's a few important things to watch. Monday could be a big day in the cryptocurrency markets, but it's hard to tell because it's Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And so the main markets won't be trading. So we could see Bitcoin acting independently of the main markets, but it could also mean that there's lower volume or higher volume because either big traders aren't trading on the stock market and are just trading Bitcoin, or they're just not trading at all. So it's kind of
Yeah, like
something to be seen.
will the weekend lull extend, or will Bitcoin be a place for board traders to go
Yeah.
because it's a hot market right now, or cryptocurrency market?
Yeah, with that, we also have the Home Builders Index, which is coming out on Wednesday, and then the initial jobless claims, which is coming out on Thursday. So unemployment data.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah, so
also have smaller impacts, but important enough impacts on the market.
but you take it in the whole. You have big tech, you have jobless claims reports. May have some revelations about the housing market. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, lots of factors that could slow or boost the next couple weeks in Bitcoin performance. So things to keep
Well,
our eye on.
another person people keep an eye on for how they might affect the cryptocurrency markets, the SEC. The SEC charges crypto from Gemini and Genesis for sale of unregistered securities. They filed a lawsuit on Thursday.
That's interesting. It's a new twist and turn in this Genesis Gemini story. Genesis and Gemini have been fighting on Twitter and in open
Yeah, it kind
letters.
of shifts the blame in an official way towards Gemini a little bit, away from DCG.
Yeah, but both of them are charged. So it's like
Right.
you guys are both idiots, is what it is saying. You were both doing illegal things. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see what happens.
The lawsuit attacks Gemini Earn uh, for taking investor funds, which took investor funds and loaned them to Genesis to earn yield. Defendants offered and sold, this is a quote, defendants offered and sold the Gemini Earn agreements through the Gemini Earn program without registering. As a result, investors lack material information for investment decisions. But yeah, interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, I'm eager to see what happens. Do you think this is going to be a big thing that could impact crypto, or do you think this whole securities debate is going to kind of slowly disappear?
I think that it's not going to disappear. I believe that they're trying to make a case to be able to tie in further investigations, where like a pinnacle case where it's like they can look back and go, okay, this happened in this case, X, Y, and Z with like crypto securities, crypto this, and that way they can reference it if stuff like this happens again. If you go to any, I'm sure a lot of people watch like law shows or anything, they usually have to reference back to another case in order to get a foothold on what's going on or how to look at a situation. And so I think they're trying to make an example out of this situation. As far as the crypto markets, though, I don't feel like stuff's going to sway too much more than what it currently is. It's like the damage has already been done for a lot of this, especially with the whole FTX debacle. Anyone who's on the fence has pretty much picked a side at this point. So in terms of like the crypto markets, I don't think it's going to be that big of an impact as this goes through. But I think legally, especially for the US and other countries that are looking at these cases, it's going to have a larger impact.
Yeah, it makes sense. They're going after them. Like, I think what we'll maybe see is like they're charging them for their earn product and not providing enough information to investors. So it'll maybe see like the death of earn products on centralized exchanges. And everyone was worried, is GBTC going to fail because of this whole Gemini Genesis thing? And it feels like DCG is going to do everything to keep GBTC alive just based on how much of a cash cow it is for that. What do you think?
No, I agree. It's one of those things where, because a lot of this is trading fees, correct?
Trading fees and management fees, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and that who says, I think it's Jesse. And he goes, if any place that holds or does like management of stuff, they don't care what you're buying or selling. They care because as long as you're buying and selling. They'll sell you this shirt off their back. They don't care. They make money off the transaction fees. They can make money off of the management fees. And right here, this kind of shows a direct correlation to that. So my guess is they're going to try to keep it alive in any way, shape they can. It might not be the same model that they currently have if they're going through all this, but they're going to open up something very similar in the worst case scenario because that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money to just leave at the table due to a fairly large hiccup. But um, yeah, I think they'd be stupid as a company not to try to hold on to that personally.
Yeah. It likely means that it'll be a little bit drawn out and maybe just in the background. And so it could take this big kind of looming event just off the table. And so that's pretty interesting to see. It goes along with their story about how they shut down Q Digital the other day. They're probably trying to consolidate potentially loss leaders or projects that were going to take a lot of capital and basically closing those down in order to basically fill that hole so that they don't have to negatively impact Grayscale and their trusts because their trusts are such earners for them.
Maybe this sentiment is what has helped turn the markets. It's like this is one of the big black clouds, and this is probably not going to happen. It's okay for Bitcoin and crypto markets to take off if they want to, at least not dampening it like it was.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of factors that were dampening the market that are maybe subsiding or becoming less of an issue. Last week you
Well,
talked
the
about
FTX story.
FTX with 5 out of the potential 8 billion that was being found through sales and everything. So helping fill that hole. We're seeing kind of Gemini and Genesis kind of get pulled to the back burner because of an SEC lawsuit. FUD from Binance is subsiding. There's less fears about proof of
Well, they got
reserves.
stress tested. It's like FTX found money. Binance got stress tested. GBCC there's a good chance it won't fold because they don't want it to. It's just making money. Yeah, there's a lot of changes.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Things are looking up for the market. One thing though is Coinbase is still struggling being a publicly traded company and everything. They're still towards new lows. In this story, they talk about Coinbase Global shares are down more than Bitcoin in the last year. So that's crazy to think about, being down more than 80%. But they're closing their Japan unit as part of their global layoffs. We talked about them laying off staff in our last show, but it seems like Japan specifically being targeted, despite stories recently out of Japan promoting what seems to be more adoption of USDC and USDT. So that's a big, interesting move from Coinbase and maybe
Yeah,
shows
I would.
Binance taking a bigger global share again.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was reading this one a little bit, and as part of a move to adjust international investment amid a slump in the digital asset sector. And it's just interesting to me. There's been all these layoffs, and then boom, the market just cracks open. And if it potentially stays open and just goes off from here, like we hit bottom or whatever, like all these people are like, they're going to call these people they just fired and be like, can you come back?
Yeah, I feel like
Potentially.
the market's gonna level off at some point.
But it's
Th-
fun to
This
imagine that.
this is just we're not at the next bull run. Like there's no way that we're at the next bull run right now. We probably found bottom. That's a good there's a good chance of that, but there's absolutely no way that we're
Right.
going to an new all-time high in the next year. Even I'm even tempted to say the next 2 years. This is accumulation season, and I'm
Well,
looking forward to accumulating.
we are within 2 years of the halving cycle. I think it's April 2024.
I think it's May, but yeah.
Yeah, right around there. We're about a year and a quarter.
Yeah, but we're usually quiet for that year and a quarter before the halving cycle. It's usually we take off 6 months after the halving. So that's where my head's at. And so
Hmm.
I'm keeping my eye on it.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Moving on. China, this is new China crypto quant analysis, believes that China is moving towards returning to the cryptocurrency market, despite the fact that since September 2021, any cryptocurrency transactions are considered completely illegal. And why are they saying this? They cite that the first Bitcoin futures ETF in China raised 79 million in its trading debut and growing volume in both spot and derivatives markets in OKX.
Interesting. That's if China is moving back towards adoption, that could be it could be a big flow of cash. The markets basically the crypto markets just the other day got back over $1 trillion market cap. And we need more liquidity. You need more volume. A lot of liquidity has been wiped out. And so the fact that China might be trading crypto again, allow crypto trading again, might add more volatility and more liquidity that we need to help push the market higher.
Yeah, they're definitely a big player in the game.
China has joined and left the crypto market 4 times now. Trying to fight against that is just inevitably going to be hurting your country or your people or however you want to look at it. And so I think they'll join back in. There's too much popularity behind all of this stuff. But there has been talk about China implementing a new currency, a digital currency that will expire after a set amount of time. So I wonder if they're trying to jump back in the crypto game to get footholds on a lot of that stuff and figure out how to have that be a part of their country's legal tender.
Interesting. Good take. I agree with you. Yeah. Goldman Sachs has also been making a play into the crypto game. They just released their tokenization platform, GSDApp, which uses a coding language developed by the Digital Asset Group, so DCG, and it's uses a different smart contract language that I haven't really heard of, DAML.
Right.
The European Investment Bank has started using it to issue 2-year digital bonds. So that's pretty interesting. We're really seeing those big players step into the space and adopt cryptocurrency.
Yeah, it looks like it's
blockchain.
on a private blockchain, which I could see institutional investors wanting that more than
Yeah, I guess they could see it as being more secure because it's a private.
and more control.
Yeah, exactly. It's more control as well. So I'm intrigued to see where this goes. It could be with the future of what CBDCs look like, rather than CBDCs necessarily operating on Ethereum or Polygon or whatever other blockchain you want to talk about, Solana. They just operate
guess
on their
with-
own private ones.
With big banks and institutional investors, it comes down to, if we're going to put in all this money, we have to make sure it's real secure. And if they're in complete control of that blockchain, maybe they'll feel better about it, even though it's not the decentralized dream of the blockchain, but another use of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's intriguing. Very interesting.
Let's jump into some chain news. There's a few here. Ethereum and MetaMask. Ethereum integrates the ability to deposit ETH with liquid staking services, Lido and Rocket.
Interesting. MetaMask is really, they are the market leader and they're continuing to make more moves to solidify their position.
It's a step short of staking just in MetaMask almost.
Yeah. Which is
I
pretty
was reading
cool.
these articles like, is that what they're doing? And it's no, but they were directly asked it. They didn't say, yes, we're doing that. They just said, we're always looking. But yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's
Cool.
liquid staking, like what you did on centralized exchanges, but by doing it through MetaMask, at least you're decentralized in that way. So you're on the blockchain and your assets are your own.
You just exposed to these smaller DeFi like Lido and Rocket Pool.
Yeah, I don't think Lido is that small. I don't know Rocket
Yeah,
Pool.
not small in a DeFi sense, but maybe small compared to
A
looking
centralized
into
exchange.
DeFi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vitalik Buterin's also been made some statements which are interesting. He said that new blockchains will likely fail if they don't offer something unique to users. And to a certain extent, it's no duh. Something that isn't unique won't necessarily be able to compete, especially given just how big Ethereum is. But
Right. They have the first mover advantage already, which is true. If they want to compete with that kind of network effect, they're going to have to offer something that differentiates them. It does make sense. It was interesting comment for his first Reddit AMA.
yeah, it was pretty interesting. And just, yeah, they're making a play on Reddit now. And so that's cool considering Reddit's adoption of their NFT avatars.
Ugh.
I'm intrigued to see
It's-
where it goes.
Into the next change, Avalanche had some big news and they had a big pump together. Avalanche and Amazon Web Services. And this is like a real collab, which leads to credits for Amazon Web Services clients that are building on Avalanche subnets. Did you see this story? This seemed to have a big effect on Avalanche.
Yeah, it pumped to almost 20% in a day. So that's
And
pretty.
I haven't heard that much talk about subnets. It's something that came up 6 months, a year ago. People started talking about subnets. There may be a way forward for the blockchain. It reminds me of Cosmos and Atom and how people can build their own ecosystem, but within Avalanche a little bit. Still
Yeah.
utilizing Avalanche a little more, not as separate as like Cosmos.
No, it's like little sub chains. Back when Krabata, if you remember, Krabata was
Oh, yeah,
super,
yeah.
super popular on Avalanche. They were going to
And the
launch their
gas.
own. They were going to launch their own subnet because they were so
They did,
massively
I
impacting sub AVAX transaction fees just based off of how much volume there was.
do believe that happened.
Did they eventually? Wasn't heavily involved in Krabata. I sold, and so I don't remember. I didn't follow to see if they actually did eventually get their subnet. But the goal is basically to allow these games or these other platforms to have their own spots
Or
where
other
they have their own
brands.
chain, they have their own chains, so that they don't
Yeah.
necessarily impact the gas fees and the transaction speeds of the main chain.
Yeah. And now there's incentive. It's incentivized to build on there. So good news for Avalanche. Get some Amazon Web Service credits, actual money. Polygon has an update as well. They're going to have a hard fork. And it's like an announcement. So nothing to see. Everything's just going to get better. But it does happen on January 17th. So it's coming up pretty soon. So something to keep an eye out for. I want to see it go smooth. That's for sure.
Yeah, but over the last several months, even during the bear market, gas has really spiked on Polygon on
Oh,
certain
yeah.
periods of like high demand for various reasons. Either a really big NFT project had a mint, or I forget, there was a big NFT project that caused a huge spike, and then there was just huge traffic after some bullish announcements, and it really spiked gas. Like, spiked gas from what's usually a couple cents to like a couple dollars, a few dollars, which is 15x at least of what gas prices are normally.
And endpoint nodes all clustered. So it's like there's been a few times where I've changed my RPC just so I can use transactions on the chain.
And it was causing the chain to slow down a little bit. So hopefully this
Hmm.
hard fork does do what it says it's doing and improve that performance and reduce those spikes. So
I think it's interesting. I don't know. Are you gonna have to do anything if I hold Matic and stuff? Are we going to have to swap stuff over or do anything like that, add a different chain to the wallets, or is it going to be what happened with Ethereum, where it's just stuff's down for about a day and then it's just back up and running. You don't have to really do anything with it.
it sounds more like the latter. It doesn't even seem like it might be down for a day. They're talking 6 to 12 hours potentially of downtime, but it'll be a little seamless change. So as long as it
Sounds
is
like a little
seamless,
bit.
it should be good.
Yeah. My wonder is because it's like Starbucks, going back to that, they partnered with is on Polygon. So is that app going to be down for those 12 hours? Are they like that's where you run into struggles with some of this stuff is if you have those bigger partnerships and you have to do maintenance on the blockchain, how does that work for all your partnered companies and stuff? Obviously, like all the Web3 stuff will be down for a little while, but how does that work for some of the real world asset stuff? People are going to get peeved if they don't get their 30-cent bonus points on their account for
Yeah.
12 hours.
Yeah, but I think it's not really bonus. So like it for them, it's if you complete certain tasks, you earn NFTs. And so it's right now,
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be too big of a thing. I think it's probably better they're doing it now than
Later.
later on.
Agreed. Agreed. Especially with the markets being so dead, it makes sense to do it, especially now.
Yeah, it keeps Polygon even more competitive, even though they've been crazy competitive this bear market. Polygon has been partnership after partnership and major bullish announcement after major bullish announcement. So this is just another way to keep those bullish announcements working on an even better UX. And so that's there's nothing wrong with that.
Speaking of integrations, what about this Twitter coin? Did you hear about this? I guess there was a screenshot released of a Twitter coin page of something the devs are working on over at Twitter. Did you see that?
I've seen it and I'm intrigued to see what it really means. They Twitter crypto coins have been a big discussion for a while. It's caused massive pumps in Doge in the past, and I'm sure will continue to cause massive pumps in Doge in the future. But it says that crypto is absent from the plans. So
Yeah, like
there,
it's not a distributed ledger. It's not actually crypto, the Twitter coin.
yeah, using Stripe, which is literally the biggest payment
That's like a big,
platform.
yeah. What direction Twitter goes as far as cryptocurrency? Just because Elon Musk seems fairly pro crypto, it'd be really interesting to watch.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
last little thing, because we're talking tech, is AI. And people have been talking a lot about AI and ChatGPT, but how do you think AI is going to affect DeFi? Really in the DeFi space. So what do you think it'll do to DeFi?
I think it will make stuff a lot more accessible to people. It's like right now, if you want to build a project, you're gonna have to hire a dev. Devs aren't cheap, especially with Solidity devs. But I think even with like playing out Chat GDP, it's like I was playing around with it like the day it launched, and I could write it's about 65 to 80% of the code for a project through Chat GDP. And we had our dev Cole play around with it. And when you're building, he goes, yeah, it's not spot on. He goes, but it makes it really easy because it'll write a lot of it and you can tweak parts of it and this and that, and it'll be good to go. So I think as that stuff starts to get a little bit more fine tuned, you'll find API or AI stuff just becoming a lot more mainstream.
Fair enough. Do you think it'll maybe add more security to DeFi? Because some of the rugs that we saw or projects that collapsed in DeFi was because project people that had an idea hired a dev off Upwork, and then that dev rugged the project. And now that they're going to be able to maybe potentially do most of it themselves, do you think that might lead to less rugs in DeFi, or do you think it could lead to more rugs in DeFi because any actor who wants to create a project or malicious actor who wants to create a project or a scam can now create their own scam coin with next to no coding experience?
I think it'll increase the amount of people who try to make a scam project in Rug, but I think it will decrease in the amount of people who actually get scammed and rugged, because you can put code into a lot of these AIs and it will tell you, hey, this does this, this is changeable, this is malleable. There's a few companies that do audits for code and they just put it into an AI engine and it's okay, like this is a green flag, green is fully secure, orange is it can be changed, and red is like obviously bad. And don't get me wrong, some of those red ones have to be there just if you're changing the tax stuff or whatever. So you'll have to do a little bit more research into who's building the project, see if they're an accountable person. But having this where you can copy and paste it makes it so much easier for the average person to be able to go through and do their own due diligence and research on the code itself of the project.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I kind of agree. I definitely think there's a strong chance that we continue to see more malicious projects, but I also think it'll allow more good projects to actually see the light of day, just because a project, like, you can have a great idea and you might not have the money to pay a developer to build it, but you can probably get 80% of the way there with a bot and maybe be able to afford that last 20% or whatever, or be smart and have a friend who's smart enough to make sure to know how to put it all together.
Yeah, 100%. And once again, it's like you said, a lot of the projects that have quote unquote rugged in the past, and it has just been up someone who they hire to do the code. Once again, they can also check that code too. It's not just the people who are trying to get into a project. It can be the project managers or the people who are wanting to start the stuff that don't know how to code. So, yeah, no, I think it will be a good shift. I think overall, it's going to be steps in the right direction as it becomes more mainstream to use AI for stuff.
Yeah. So it could be seen as an additional security feature. And I think that could be a huge selling point for DeFi. So it's something to keep an eye on, everyone. But I think that's it for today. Thank you for joining us today, Kurt. Do you have any little shout outs you want to do before we close this off?
Check out Cardinal House. We do anything from helping you set up your wallets to teaching you how to trade to just being there as a community for you. Other than that, no, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining us, Kurt. We'll catch you guys all next time for our next show on Wednesday. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. Thank you for listening to Decentralized News and joining us today. Please consider liking and subscribing to see the videos as soon as they drop, and stay tuned for our next episode. Have a great day, everybody.